Hi, and welcome to Nothing Ventured, Nothing Game. I'm your host with the most, your GM Jared. And tonight, or today, whenever you're listening to this, I'm joined by Steve.
Yep.
And on another segment of Recall Knowledge, we're going to talk about crafting and how it affects Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Now, most of us are playing a very typical game of Pathfinder. And in these adventures, if you're playing an adventure module or maybe a homebrew, a lot of times you're moving constantly. You're seeking out the hobgoblin temple, you're chasing down the evil vampire, you're moving from place to place, and your characters don't have much downtime because maybe that comes at the end of the game. Like for myself as a GM, usually between books or scenarios, I'll give players maybe a month of downtime. And in that time period, they can craft. But what about the player that invests heavily into crafting? Maybe they're playing a dwarven blacksmith and they just keep leveling up crafting, or maybe they're playing an elvish bladesmith and they're all about making magical crafts, right? And that's kind of what they want to do in the game. The rules as written crafting relies heavily on downtime. And that's a bit of a problem for those players because it requires the GM to A, allocate downtime for all the players, especially that one player who wants to put a ton of time into it. And B, maybe that's not the style of game you're doing. If it's just one player, right, Steve? Like if it's just one player who wants to do the crafting, the rest of it seems like, I guess we sit around indefinitely, or maybe they might role play with each other.
Yeah, it's still.
Yeah.
If only one character is really into this whole idea of downtime, and other people want to go, storm the castle and save the evil necromancer from the pretty princess. You have to, and so you're sacrificing the fun of 2, 3, 4, 5 players for the sake of one player. And I'm not saying that player is not worth it, but you have to balance as a GM the flow of the game as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And like the worst thing you could do is to bring it to a grinding halt in the middle of the adventure because someone wants to look, I just want to do crafting.
Yeah. And also not just that, but I know for myself, I like the Talisman Dabbler class. Well, it's not a class, it's
archetype.
Thank you, Steve. And it revolves around having tons of talismans, which requires crafting
or a shop to buy them from,
or a shop, or having like Gnome Depot just show up in your game, and and now you can purchase whatever you need from there. And again, that kind of like, because talismans are consumable, right? Or let's say a wizard, right? Like wizards burn through spells, and a lot of people not have made that complaint, but find that like 2nd edition magic, while is powerful, you don't have as many spells as you feel you need in these encounters, especially higher level encounters where monsters have high saves, and a lot of times you're like, okay, I'm gonna roll. Oh, the monster rolled a 17 plus 17, and that just destroyed my, it super saved, so it does nothing. So the wizard's like, hey, can I make a batch of scrolls? Well, as per crafting, you can. If only you had a month's worth of downtime. And that's something. So Steve, why don't you kind of like inform us of the rules as written, how kind of crafting works, and why we keep beating up downtime?
Yeah, so we're going to give it down and dirty. I'm not going to go over every single rule. So if you ever want to, as I pull over the thing, if you ever really want to go, it's in the core rule book. Also, Archive of Nethys is going to have the most up-to-date rules, just in case stuff changes. But let's go over crafting as it is right now. So first thing, it's a downtime activity. So you can technically only do crafting when you have been given downtime by the GM. And there's a numerous amount of feats that you can get to expand your crafting, but depending on your training level, so basically on your proficiency, that limits what you can craft. So If you're only trained, you can only make 9th level items. If you start getting higher and higher into your proficiency, it allows you to make higher level items. So you want to make an item, great. You want to make a rune for your sword. You want to make a new sword, maybe a suit of armor. So any permanent item in the game that is not a consumable, you first have to spend 4 days crafting it. And you have to spend half of the gold of the item. So if there's a 100 gold piece item, you have to shell out 50 gold right up front and spend 4 days. And you make your single crafting check. And then based on your roll, so whether you crit fail, succeed, or crit succeed, will determine how expensive that item is going to be. So if you crit fail, you lose 10% of what you put into it, and then you got to start all over. So if I put 50 gold in, or I lose 10% of that 50 gold, and then I have whatever left, I kind of salvage it, and then I have to start all over now I have to spend another 4 days making trying again, because man, I really want that sword. I really want that armor. Failing just means you just wasted the 4 days, but you get all your money back, or money. It's kind of like your materials, but it's in a gold piece value. Success and crit success is where we kind of get into actually crafting the item. So if I succeed at crafting the item, at the end of that 4 days, I can walk away with my item if I want. All I have to do is spend the other 50% of that item. So if you heard that right, if you're doing the math, I spent 50% to start, I'm spending 50% to end. I spent a full price to buy that item, to craft that item, but it also cost me 4 days of my time. And also all these feats. I could be taking other feats that get me other things that I could do. So maybe I could take a whole bunch of charisma feats and coerce the guy to give me a discount, which technically already I saved the 4 days and I get a discount because I bartered with the guy or girl, whoever's running the shop. So this is kind of what the problems you start seeing. There is a caveat to this. You can spend additional downtime days and continue working on the item. And this is kind of how you get a discount on the item. And the discount is based on your proficiency level. So it's your trained, expert, master, or legendary, and your level. There's a chart in the book called the earning income chart. So any character can earn income with certain skills, and they can spend downtime to say, well, I'm going to go work in the scribe, and I'm going to just kind of work with people and scribe the things that they ask me to scribe. Okay, well, you get money for that. In this, instead of getting money, you don't get money in your pocket, you get money in progress on your weapon or whatever you're crafting. So let's say we're 5th level and we're crafting this 100 gold piece item, whatever it is. So we spent 50 gold. So now we have to get that other 50 gold into the mix. As a expert at 5th level, I earn 1 gold a day. So I succeeded at my check. So I get 1 gold a day. So if you're doing the math, if I want, and the maximum discount is 50%. So if I can work hard enough and long enough, I can basically make that other 50% free, the one that I haven't paid for yet. But that would take 50 days of downtime if I want the full 50%, because that's 1 gold a day and I need 50 gold. That's 50 days. That's almost 2 months of me working on this item and not adventuring and not doing anything else. That's not fun.
I like that. Just flat out no.
That's not fun.
Now I have a question for you, right? So that's a permanent item. What about batches? Spell scrolls, a trinket, a rune. Is it shorter? Like, would it be like instead of 4 days, maybe it's like a day and a half, 2 days, an hour and 45 minutes?
Yeah. Like consumables are a little bit better, but they are consumables. So once you use them, you got to make more. Consumables only take 1 day of downtime, and then the rest of the process is exactly the same. The only other difference is if you're making the same item and you want to make multiples, when you're making consumables, you can make what's called batches. And you can make up to 4 of the same item. So you can't make like 1 scroll of invisibility and 1 scroll of magic missile and then 1 potion. You can't do that. It's like if you want to make a scroll of invisibility, you're making 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's up to you how many you want to make. The time doesn't actually change, but you have to pay for each item. So if it's 4 scrolls and they're all 10 gold each, it's 40 gold total. So I have to start by paying 20 gold. And then the whole process starts like I roll my check after the day of downtime, and then I can spend additional days as much as I have time. So maybe you don't have the full time to get 50% off to make up the difference. and based on your downtime. So and also we didn't go over when you crit succeed, it's the same thing. You earn income, but you earn income at one level higher. So at 5th level, I'd be earning 1 gold a day, and at 6th level, I would be earning 2 gold a day. So it's double, but not every level is double. But you still earn more money if you crit success because you crit success. Like yay, get an extra 5 silver sometimes.
Yeah.
So
that hurts.
So
that hurts
like you said,
hard.
so when you're like, even in our game, let's say we had someone who's really into crafting in our Wrath of the Righteous game. We're fighting demons and the world's ending and stuff is exploding, and the town cleric just got punched in the face by the archlich demon of something horrible. Do you really want to say, hold on a second, I need 2 months to make this item that
Guys,
we might need? Hold on, I'm still fiddling with it.
Yeah, and I don't get me wrong, right? So here's the funny thing. I love watching Forged in Iron, Forged in
Fire.
Forged in Fire. So, thank you. I love watching Forged in Fire. They send them home for like 48 hours, and they come back with dope swords.
Yeah, like 4 days. You got 4 days.
They're
come back with the Masamura blade of the ancient times.
And these guys are like, these people, right?
I got
like,
you.
They leave, and some of them have it's like, oh, this was a charcoal grill that I turned into a forge, and they turn in these beautiful weapons, right? Like these beautiful weapons, and then they will kill, right? That's a shout out to, if anyone watches it, you'll get that joke. But like they will work, and I'm like, okay, so 4 days to make a sword, but my magic dwarf in Magic World needs 2 months to make the same sword. That doesn't do anything magical because, mind you, if it's magical, I have to find a wizard or someone who could cast that spell.
Yeah, or you have an ability to cast magic, or each item in the game will tell you if there's a requirement to craft it. So what we're basically saying is yes, technically you can make that sword in 4 days. It's going to cost you the full price of the item.
Yeah.
And the point of investing, why would I invest? The only time that I think that someone would, given the current rule set, if we want to play completely rules as written, the only time I would see this is I'm in a place where I can't buy stuff. I'm not in the town. I'm not, or maybe the town's destroyed and everyone's dead, right? And I'm the only one. I'm the merchant now, right? The only other thing is that maybe I have a recipe, or the GM has granted me a recipe that something is uncommon or rare, and I'm trying to I have the recipe, I don't have the item, and I'm trying to craft it, or maybe I'm trying to put an artifact together. I can't buy that. Yeah. I'm going to need to craft that. So if that's kind of like your MacGuffin, well, that's different. But given that I'm investing skill points, I'm investing, say I'm playing a fighter, right? And I just want to be the intelligent fighter because I really like crafting. I don't want to be that fighter who kind of makes their own stuff and repairs their gear, right? I don't want to always be fixing my shield. I want to be making all this stuff and seeing that my investment is worth it.
Yeah. Also quick repair at higher levels, you do it in one turn.
Well, one action.
Action, yeah. And I'm like, wait, one action, I can fix my shield. But the moment we're out of combat, 4 months, guys. I need 8 years to get this shield done. And also, I'm a human. Forget, now I just spent 3 months of my life making this one shield.
That's a good percentage right there of you.
Yeah, that's a lot on the human. Sure, the elf got time, right? The elf, oh yeah. We're not talking about goblins, right? Goblins live even shorter than as per Roar.
That's a quarter of their life right there.
That's a quarter of their life. These little guys, that's why they don't make stuff, right? That's why all their features are they just cobble stuff together.
We fast forward through a lot of this stuff because we want to get to the meat of the game. We only have a couple hours, 4 hours or so to play these games a lot of times. We all have work, we all have other things to do, family. Yeah. We don't want to sit around the table and roll some dice I gotta. Okay, so you're doing that for a month and a half. What is everyone else doing? I really didn't expect to be doing stuff. I wanted to kill those demons.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. There are some adventure paths. Kingmaker is an amazing adventure path where there is a lot of downtime because you're building a city. Well, you're building your kingdom, more or less. And they give you a lot of downtime, but there's also stuff to do, build a castle and bring in people. And there's hex crawling where time can extend, where you're okay, so to go from hex A4 to B7 is about 3 months of travel. So everyone on your character sheet start marking off items, rations, and then in that time, then the crafter can say, okay, well, can I do this? And then the person we had this video on skills with the retraining. So then the person can be like, well, can I retrain a skill? Sure, because you have that time period.
Yeah.
But the game allows for that. But it's even if you have that conversation, it's quick dice rolling and a lot of math, and then bam, you're in the next adventure part.
Yeah.
You're not really like, unless that's your game, and then more power to you. I feel like I'm poo-pooing on people who are like,
so
I want to like play
yeah. So all we're saying in this context is that the current skills, the current crafting system is not conducive to a group experience. Before we started recording, Jared, you were telling me that you do read the Paizo novels, right?
Yes.
So bring up that you were talking about.
So I've been reading Radovan, and it's a whole book series, and they was a very famous characters. I just got back into it. I finished Prince of Wolves, and I literally on the drive home I just finished Master of Devils, and
you you heard that correctly. He reads while he drives home.
Audible. Thank God for some things. And I just finished Master of Devils, and in both books, Jagari, that's the guy's name, Count Jagari. He's like the two characters are Count Jagari and Radovan, and think like Sherlock Holmes and Watson. That's their whole premise. But they're adventurers, right? They're like adventurers. And Jagari, he apparently he's very adept at magic, but he couldn't cast spells because like he got sick because of casting spells, and he knew magic, how to like read magic, understand magic, but couldn't cast spells. Like even cantrips made him nauseous, and he learned a new way to make spell scrolls, and he called them riffle scrolls. And in the books, he makes these like overnight, and he'll make a bunch of them, and then be able to start. And that's how he cast. And if I were to bring that concept to the game, right? Like, let's say I've had players do this. I've had someone play a monk, and they then went sorcerer, right? So monk sorcerer, and they wanted to create like scrolls from like Naruto, like where they throw scrolls and like bombs explode and stuff like that. And the crafting system, again, doesn't allocate time to allow for them to make, but if they're making just magic missile, sure, they could do that in one day. But that's a full 24 hours. And they're like, yo, can I make these overnight, like while we're camping? Because I already know the next day I'm getting to the castle and we're going to fight the evil princess and get the lich free. So can I get these scrolls? And I'm like, as per roar, technically no, blah, blah, blah. But so
then in that book, in the book series, you said that like overnight the person was making these scrolls. Were they doing stuff during the day?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're like fighting. In the new one, Master of Devils, they were in Tian Sha, and the magic guy was training to be a monk. Like he got monk powers, and during the day he was training, like fighting and cooking and cleaning, because he was in a monastery. And at night he would study magic, study these spell scrolls, and then create them. And that was like his form of combat. There were tournaments, and he was like, Karate Kid style, like wax on, wax off. And then at night he would
magic.
And then magic, yeah. And then at night he would make these spell scrolls.
We're like very much a lot of people who play, you hear it. They play a very cinematic game, and these people who want to have these crafted-based characters don't have an outlet. We want to give them an outlet. We also don't want to have an unbalanced system. And we were coming up with a couple of ideas, and I try to kind of fix some issues. This is untested. Well, 100% untested. Use at your peril.
Yeah.
But this is the system that we're going to start using if we're going to, because I know that we have two spellcasters in the group. And yet again, just because you're not a spellcaster does not mean you can't craft. But there are certain things that you need help with. That way, if you are going to make certain magical items, they tell you, hey, you need to have a person who can cast this spell. And some magic items, you just need the feat. And you don't have to cast any magic, which is completely unusual from older systems of the game.
Yeah, that was a different one. But like I personally
even
know
old Pathfinder.
Jeff, yeah. I like even in our first campaign, and this kind of what inspired this in our first campaign. Zach came to me and was like, "Hey," he was playing a cleric. He was like, "Can I make spell scrolls? Because I'm running out of healing in these encounters." Because he went a war priest, and he didn't take a lot of charisma. I think he had a 12, and then when we ended at like 10th level, he had a 14. So he never really bumped it. And that's how you get your bonus spell slots for healing.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Dude, I we need healing. Like healing is so crucial." and the barbarian Balin had battle medicine to help mitigate the healing.
I was the off healer.
Yeah, the barbarian was the off healer. And he was like, "Can I craft spell scrolls?" And like we went into a whole conversation, and I was like, "Dude, I don't." And again, Pathfinder Second Edition was new, and we were still learning the rules and everything, and I was struggling to come up with something. And this was kind of something we built on. Again, we never really fully tested it, so it's our homebrew that we feel kind of is fairish, right? So take that as with a grain of salt. It's fairish.
Hi, this is future editor Steve here. Here where I'm going to tell you where to go download a copy of these rules, our custom crafting rules that we're going to be using in our game if you want to use it for your game, or if you want to just show it to your GM. That website is our website. It's www.nvngpodcast.com. And it's under the socials and contacts section. And you'll see all of our conversions and downloads that we've released as of date. I would also like to thank the pf2.tools website. Is where I actually got the template that I used on this PDF to make it look kind of all official-ish and easily readable. And I specifically used the scribe tool. So thumbs up to them. They're not a sponsor. I just found the tool way back in the day, and it's awesome. And they have a variety of tools on there. So check out pf2.tools if you want to check out the stuff that they have over there. Future Steve out. All right. So one of the major problems that we saw with crafting is, well, the two major problems is, one, the 4 days is an expensive amount of time to pay. Flat out. The second thing is, if you only spend the 4 days, you're basically spending the full price of the item. So why take it? So that's the two things we're trying to figure out, is why would you take it, and what benefit it is for taking this over taking something else. Excuse me. So the first fix that we have, and this may be kind of controversial on this one, is that normally when you start crafting an item, you pay 50% of the item's cost. We're saying you only pay 25% of the item. So you're building a 100 gold piece item, 25% has to be cash on hand right now in the item into whatever it's making, whether it's steel or magic inks and paper, whatever it is, doesn't matter. It's 25 gold pieces worth of stuff to start crafting the item. All items take 1 day. And there is a difference. There is downtime crafting and not downtime crafting, and it's going to be super simple. If you're crafting and you're doing anything during the day, you had fought today, you were doing guards, you even were hanging out trying to get information at the bar, and you spent a couple hours doing that. You do anything during the day, and you're not just 100% spending 8 hours doing crafting, you get one item. And you can do it, like I said, do it overnight in the campfire. Everyone's chit-chatting around. We're doing a little role play. Do a little role play, and you're fiddling with the thing, right? You're fiddling with the item. The success rate, it's very similar. If you crit fail, it's exactly the same. You messed up. You messed up big. You lost 10% of the items, the 10% of the cost. So of that 25%, how much gold it is, you lose 10%, which is exactly the same as it is right now. And you got to start over. Failure is the same thing. We didn't change that. You messed up, but you didn't do it too badly. You lost all your progress, but you kept all the money you put into it. So you didn't lose anything except for the 1 day of downtime, or the 1 day of time.
You forgot to hit save when you closed out the
yeah, you didn't
tab.
save scum it.
Yeah.
You succeeded to make the item. You immediately have to pay 50% of that item's worth. So if that's a 100 gold piece item, you have to pay 50 gold. So remember, you already paid 25 gold to start, and then you pay 50 gold. So what is that? That's a 25% discount. But remember, you can, if you're doing anything else during the day, you can only make one item or one batch. So batches are 4 items and they must all be the same, like I said before. If you crit succeed, similar to success, you've successfully made the item, but you were really awesome. You only had to pay 25% of the item's cost. So you paid 25 gold. Remember, we started with a 100 gold piece MacGuffin. I paid 25 gold to start. I paid 25 gold to finish. I effectively have 50% of a discount, which, if you look at the current rules of the game, is technically the maximum discount you can get anyway by just spending eons making the item. Instead of spending eons, you're spending a single day, and you just rolled awesome. The difference is in downtime, you can make more. The rules are exactly the same. The crit success, failure, crit failure, success, and crit success are all the same. They function exactly the same. But if I'm trained, I can make 2 sets of items, which could be 2 batches of items. Could be 2 different batches, like a potion, 4 potions of healing and 4 scrolls of invisibility. Or it could be really cool pseudo armor and 4 elixirs. It doesn't matter, whatever it is. You can make 2 items. If you're expert, you can make 3 items. Master is 4, legendary is 5. So if you're really awesome and I'm a legend at crafting and I just spend, maybe you do have downtime, I can make a whole bunch of items. Now, yet again, this is all down to the GM saying, do you have the materials and the means to do it? So say we're outside the dungeon. We're gonna kind of touch on this because Jared and I had touched on this before, right? Technically, we said no matter where you are, you can do crafting, and you can, if you're doing other stuff, you can craft 1 item. You have to be reasonable about this. And we're not making this into a rule. I'm not typing all of this out. But if I'm right outside the dungeon and I have a campfire and some stone, I am not forging the greatest Vorpal blade ever known to man. If I have to mix some stuff and throw some magic into something and I can get a scroll or a bunch of scrolls, or maybe even a rune, I'm throwing some magic into a piece of stone and I'm kind of carving a little bit, and it's a little like little piece of like something. That's reasonable.
Yeah.
Bringing a 1,000-pound forge with you and molten metal, that's a little unreasonable. So it's just use kind of like your common sense with this. And yet again, the GM can always say, that's a little too complicated for where you are right now. Maybe if you were in town, that would be different. But right now, in the middle of the wilderness, probably not a good idea.
Yeah. And that's kind of where this all like kind of pans itself out, right? Like, oh, I'm in the wilderness. Maybe we killed an owl bear. So I can make now the owl bear talisman because, I have some twine, I have some, the claw, maybe some sinew from the owl bear. And I stand there and I shake my hands like this and I level up
that's
my
crafting.
Yeah, that's craft. This is the generic crafting symbol. And, blink, I have it, and obviously, like Steve said, like if you're in the woods, you're trying to make the Vorpal blade of Vorpalness, and you don't have a forge or any of that stuff, this was more or less to say, listen, like, if you want to make a shield, or remember, because quick craft, right? Quick repair, it says like you have to have the tools already kind of on hand and maybe some of the junk. And what's really fun is like we were talking about this, there's a feat that says you always kind of have the right items for the job. It's something planner.
I can't remember the name of it.
It's something planner. I forget the name of it.
A persistent planner, I think it's called.
Persistent planner, yeah. And it's you always kind of like the right stuff. That's cool. Like maybe you take that feat and then that's like you could talk to your GM about it. And obviously this is GM discretion mixed with like, let's be reasonable here, right? The wizard wants to make a bunch of fireball spell scrolls. Cool, because we know we have to raid the castle.
Yeah. And then ink and paper is probably something they're going to be carrying them anyway. But to Jared's point, you slay that owlbear and maybe like I'm the talisman dabbler and I'm just making talismans. Someone else is an armor smith and they're skinning and preparing the leathers and they're making armor and they're making magic armor. That's a reasonable thing. You have the materials on hand, and leather armor doesn't really require as specialized tools and as heavy as tools as like doing anything with metal, right? And melting metal. And so you can, there's still a very much a big gray area where you can still craft a whole bunch of stuff regardless of where you are. So,
yeah. And that's just our little homebrew concept we kind of put together because we know crafting. We know I love the concept of crafting. I have a like, I know in my group there are a number of people who would love to have the time to craft, and I know they are stifling themselves because of the rules. You know, I've
They're
talked
waiting for Jared to say, "Here's X amount of days of downtime,"
that's what they're
and
waiting
it's
for.
not going to happen. It's not because Jared's mean. It's just the fact that the story doesn't fit. It doesn't
Yeah,
make sense.
Yeah. Currently, they don't have that. Like they're constantly in our game. They're constantly leaving, dealing with something, and coming back, and then leaving. You know, so it's a lot of like moving back and forth to try and mitigate what's happening. And that's my campaign. Maybe your campaign, you're on a ship and you have months of travel time, and then in that situation, sure, like refer back to the original rules as written. But this was more of like a, hey, we've seen the Mandalorian, we've seen Boba Fett when their armor's all jacked up, and they kind of just cobble stuff together, and they now can do stuff. You know, it's not the best, but they could do stuff. You know,
Or like
and
MacGyver. It's like, hold on a second. I am in a closet full of like duct tape and bleach. I can make bombs. Like, you know, it's just like, and it's like, that's in 15 minutes. So let people MacGyver stuff. Even at the worst, even if you even take a look at this at the worst possible way of that, they crit success, they make a whole bunch of items. If they sell this stuff back to try to like make profit, they're selling it at 50%. They paid 50%. They're a net zero.
Yeah.
So it's not like there's this is a way for like, oh, you can generate infinite money. We try to make it balanced, but also let the crafters craft.
Yeah.
Let them use those consumables.
Yes. And honestly, like I find this will definitely jump into a different conversation. But as a GM, the more consumables I give my players, the more they're likely to use them. Let us know, obviously, in the comments down below if you like these rules. If you've got any homebrew rules yourself, we would love to hear them. Like, this is us just trying to reach out to you and hear about your own homebrew rules on crafting. Do you let crafting happen? Do you give a lot of downtime? Do you play with downtime at all? Or is it a lot of hand waving? You know, like, don't worry about it, man. Like, you know, how much is the armor? 75 gold? Cool. Give me 75 gold and we'll call it even, Steven. You know, and tell us what you do in your games. So with that being said, I want to say thank you very much from myself, GM Jared, and from Steve. So if you're new here, thanks for stopping. Thanks for listening. If you can, subscribe. If you're a longtime subscriber, thank you very much. It helps us a lot, more than you'll ever know. So have a good day, good evening, and good afternoon, right? Like afternoon. I feel like afternoons don't get enough love, Steve. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.
Later.